Welcome back, Kingdom Dads. And so we're excited, but we are honored to be at Northfield Church right now doing a live podcast for their annual Rise Up event.
Yeah, man, what a great event. We've already got a lot of guys in the house. Really good turnout this year. We were blessed the weather has, quote unquote, held out for us to this point, so that's awesome. So I'm just pumped to be here.
Yeah, from the weather holding out to us being live on stage, man. Isn't God good? He has done just amazing things. It was 4 to 5 months ago that we were in a couples study, and you walked up to me after, and you were like, "Hey, man, let's start a podcast." We were just in the gym, right?
Yeah.
Right down the hallway, and here we are, man, doing a live event. God's done some amazing things.
Yeah, man, and what an incredible time to talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. So this episode tonight that we're doing, it's Brotherhood, Overcoming Satan's Lies, and incredibly relevant, obviously, at a men's event where for some of you guys, a lot of us are in men's groups every week. For some of you guys out there, this may be your only men's event for the year, kind of your Easter of men's events, if you will. And so we're here just to we want to talk about that, talk about the importance of, getting in men's events, being sharpened by other men's groups, and what that looks like. And we'll kind of dive in. Yeah,
and so before we get too far in, starting with our usual segment of dad hacks or what the dad, and we should have, I didn't even think about it. We could have pulled somebody out of the audience. Surely one of these guys out here had a crazy moment with one of their kids this week.
Yeah.
But this is more just a dad life, not necessarily a dad hack or what the dad, but, my son is a mama's boy. All right, and I get it because I was too, and I was talking to a buddy about this on Friday, and his son was just turned a little over 1, and so we were kind of going back and forth about this, and it's like, man, when my wife used to, when she would just go on a store run, right, I'm gonna run to Target for 30 minutes, man, my son would just throw a fit, mama,
yeah.
mama, and I'm like, buddy, I'm your dad. Like, I've got blood, sweat, and tears poured over you too. Like, we can hang out, man. We can have a good time. But finally, man, this weekend, my wife was going to go on a store run, and my son was like, "Well, what are you doing, Dad?" And I was like, "Man, I got to work on the lawnmower. I've got to get the blades changed." And he was like, "I want to do that. I want to work on the lawnmower." And so, lifted the lawnmower up. He was out there in the backyard working with me yesterday. And so that was nice, man. It felt good. And shout out to my wife, who actually ended up not going to the store because she knew how this was going to go.
Yep.
I was under the lawnmower changing the blades, and my son was pulling my sockets out of my socket set. Rocket blaster.
Dude, a 9/16 socket does look a lot like a rocket booster.
Yeah. It's so yeah, but it was fun, man. We had a good time. Good family day yesterday, and so that was good. So just to you fathers out there that are pouring your energy into your kiddos, and they may be leaning towards their mothers, they're going to come around to you.
You got to get creative. I have 2 girls, 5 and 8, and I've told Nate and Tanner, they know, but I put a TV out in my shop, and I will literally bring their rocking chairs out from our porch. Like yesterday, I was working out there on a whole bunch of cabinet doors, and we want to hang out in the shop, and they come out, they put on Minions on the TV, wrap up in blankets, and it's like a field trip for them watching a movie in the shop. They're happy as can be. We're all hanging out.
Yeah, actually, speaking of hacks, if you have girls, I saw some kind of woodworking thing that you posted. So you're out in the shop trying to work, and your girls wanted like a balance bar. So you're like, let's just build one. Let's blend ballet and woodwork.
Yep. Gotta get creative.
But cool, man. Good stuff. All right, so let's jump right in. And so, starting with the verse, James 4:7-8. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Right? So sounds easy.
Yeah.
If you resist the devil and fight off temptation and do what God's calling you to do, the devil will flee. Right? Like that should just be something we can start doing this afternoon.
Yeah, and I love in our notes, it says Satan's goal of isolation. Isolation is one of the number one ways that, Satan loves when we isolate. When things get hard, or when we're going through trials, or when we're struggling, or maybe when we don't know anybody, we isolate. And that's just a tool of the enemy. He loves when we're by ourselves. So what scripture, why don't you read Proverbs on that?
Yeah, and that's kind of where we were going with this, is it sounds easy to avoid temptation and resist things and do the right things, but man, it's not. Satan's got an arsenal of weapons, and isolation is a huge one, and that's why we're up here talking about men's group. And so, Proverbs, one who isolates himself pursues selfish desires. He rebels against all sound wisdom.
Yeah.
And then it's so easy when you're frustrated or you're struggling just to wall yourself off. If you listen back into episode 2 when I'm kind of talking about my story last year and the challenges I was going through, me and my wife was trying to be supportive. Not a lot of other people. I didn't really talk to a ton of people about what I was going through, and it was just so easy for me just to say, like, I just need my alone time. I need to go in the room. And, at that point, you start attacking yourself. The devil starts attacking, because that's where he really wants you. He wants you by yourself. He doesn't want you around strong men that are going to see the truth. Following up with that Proverbs verse, be alert of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Which it's so true. The story of Elijah comes to mind, and so the prophet Elijah, right? Like he challenged Ahab and the prophets of Baal to this sacrifice, right? To bring fire down from the sky for a sacrifice. And so Elijah, with God's help, obviously, prays to God, brings fire out of the sky, and then slaughters it's like 850 prophets of Baal and whatever, the other gods that they were worshiping at the time. And so, Elijah does this, and immediately he heard that the queen was going to come after him, and so he retreats into the wilderness. And in the wilderness, he's praying. I've got the verse here, 1 Kings 19, 3-4. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. Yeah. This guy just leaned on the Lord to bring fire from the sky and killed 850 men. And now all of a sudden he's praying like, I wish I was dead.
Yeah.
It just speaks to what isolation can do to you. And it's not a good place to be.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I love, and several of us in here, like I'm involved. My wife leads Celebrate Recovery. I go a lot, just being totally transparent. I love the methodology behind Celebrate Recovery because, it talks about how everybody has hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and it really teaches you how to be vulnerable. It's an environment that is, it's very confidential. It's a safe space, and I love that. We talk about that in our men's group a lot, where it's very easy to say when you're going through something hard about, the last thing I want to do is go talk to people or go be vulnerable. And that's one of the things I'm incredibly proud of in the men's groups here at Northfield in particular, but just in general, if you're a part of a men's group, a healthy men's group is going to be a very safe space. As I look out, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of you guys that have been hard conversations about things that you're going through, but just by being vulnerable, it's like it allows layers to start coming off, allows you to be sharpened by your fellow man, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, and you don't even, I didn't go to these things thinking like, oh, I need a bunch of guys to lean on. It was just like, all right, I need to get connected in something else. I need some better influences in my life. And so, that's what got me to our men's group here with Northfield Forge. Yeah. And looking back, all the stuff that I was going through last year, I didn't even realize how important it was to have guys either going through the same thing, saying, I'm struggling with this or that, or even some of the older guys looking back saying, this is what I went through and this is how I got through it. Because you look at some of the elders of the church or mentors or just people you look up to, and a lot of times you see them and you see where they're at. You don't see the work that went in behind the scenes. You don't see the challenges. You don't see the mental fight they had with Satan to get to where they are, and just to be part of a men's group and hear that. It was huge for me.
Yeah, and I think when you were talking about that, I was just thinking, I know Dave Ramsey says, like, everybody just looks at me and says, yep, I just got into this thing, wrote some books, and woke up rich, but they don't know all the struggles and the journey along the way. And I think of guys even like Jim or Vic Flanagan, a good friend of mine, how when you talk to them, they do talk about, man, if I look at somebody like Jim right now, I'm like, man, he's got it together. He's, an incredibly wise guy in our church who I try to model after. But I know he's been through some hard stuff, and we'll talk about the things and the lessons that he learned along the way, and that helps it to feel more normal, and again, also just helps us to not, like, I don't want to have to make all of my own mistakes if I can learn from somebody wiser and older who has done it before me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or while you're making your mistakes.
Yeah, man.
Having to make them alone. You know, it's tough. It's tough.
That's another huge part of it, just having those people in our life, right, who, if they are watching you and walking in accountability, will say, hey, dude, like, what are we doing right now? And just have a healthy, check-in with you and speak to you in truth, and that's big.
Yeah, it is. And going back to Satan and the way he attacks. The first time we heard from the deceiver, the serpent, and Eve, or in the garden, he's speaking to Eve and asking, did God say you really can't eat from any tree in the garden? We've got Jesus tempted by Satan in the wilderness in Matthew, and then we've got John in John chapter 8, verse 44. Jesus is specifically calling the devil, he's a liar, and he's the father of lies. Yeah. And it's so easy, just as a man, you feel like you should do it yourself sometimes, right? Like, I have to figure this out. This is my job. And I think that I was one that really took that thought process to the max of, I don't need to lean on you. I can figure this out. I'm a smart person. I can do this. But, man, that's exactly where Satan wants you to be. He wants you talking yourself down. He wants to be speaking to you. He wants to be in your ear just saying, you're not good enough, or don't step out and do whatever you're being called to do. Don't take that leap, right? For us, it started out as small as a podcast, right? It's like, nobody wants to listen to you guys.
Yeah, man. I'm curious, how many guys in the group or in the audience are in a men's group? Just raise your hand. Cool. So probably about half. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, awesome. A decent group. I'm sure a lot of these guys would echo that same story about how important it is, because it's just, man, you can wall yourself off, and you can be pretty tough on yourself, you know. And God speaks over and over again. The Bible speaks about the importance of brotherhood. We've got Proverbs, right? Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. In Ecclesiastes, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other.
Yeah. Man, iron sharpens iron. Proverbs 27:17. We've got multiple men's groups here at Northfield that you'll hear about tonight probably. There are tables outside with cards on them if you aren't signed up for one. But when we started Forge several years ago now, Proverbs 27:17 came to mind immediately. And we meet every Saturday morning, our group does, and we see iron sharpening iron literally every week, years in now, where you've got a couple of guys that are going through the same hard thing, and they'll pair up, and it's what gets guys through a lot of times, just God working through those relationships. And it just, again, the enemy is the father of lies. All he wants to do is tell you you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're the only one going through this. So it just breaks that.
Yeah, and if you're kind of on the fence right now and you're feeling like, man, I don't really have anything to bring to a men's group, or I wouldn't know how to act or respond, like, that's 100% fine. I think the guys in this group, the guys leading this group, they were in that spot one day, and they know exactly where you're at. I'm happy when a new guy just shows up and is just part of the group listening. And then they're bound to throw something in they're going through in life, or some challenge, after getting comfortable with the group, and you don't have to carry a load. You don't have to bring a great story. And it's just God uses the power of men together to speak to one another, to sharpen one another, and you can't do that if you're by yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So now, guys, we've talked biblically why it's important and why we're supposed to be in men's groups and in community with other men, but I want to talk a minute about where do we start, what does that look like if you're not plugged in today, and I also just want to take a minute and just talk on my personal beliefs with being in a group as husband and as wife, and what that looks like, and what I've seen it look like really successfully, I should say. So we've talked about before, but I really feel like as a husband or a father, you should be in a men's group for a lot of reasons. I feel like the wife or the mother should be in a women's group. There are just certain things, Jim Schreiner told me this a long time ago at Men of Integrity, but there are just certain things that, while I'm very open and honest with my wife, we're wired very differently. I'm physiological, she is emotional. There are certain things that only other men, and having that conversation with other men are going to enable me to feel supported, right, and have that accountability. Same with wives, right? They need to be around other women who are emotional beings, and they can share all of their heavy emotional feelings and all of that. At the same time, I also feel like it's important, if you're married, to be in a couples study together. So 2 studies each for men's group, couple study with your wife, we're in one of each, and it works really well. That way, hey, we're building a friends and a community group together, where our kids are playing with our friends' kids together, and it's just a really healthy balance. But I do feel like, again, it's really important to have both. Again, your accountability partner as a man should never be somebody of the opposite sex. Should always be another man or a men's group. If you're having deep conversations with a woman at work or an assistant, that's really big red flag. Get you in trouble quick. That's how you wind up on Dateline, or something else. I don't even know. I don't know where that goes, but not the way you want to go. Anyway, back to kind of what it looks like to dive in. So
yeah, and even going, before we move on from the various groups you talk about, I mean, I know we're all busy, right? We've got kids. We're learning how to be good fathers. Kids are tied up in sports. We've got work, and it feels like, man, you're asking me to do a men's group on Saturday, and then now you want to do a couples group on Sunday night, and I'm just going through kind of my thought process when Andrew kind of spurred our couples group off. And it does feel like a lot, but man, I wouldn't, now that we're involved in both, man, I wouldn't change it for a second. It's been awesome because it's just such a different dynamic. I mean, you're around a group of guys, and then, you with your wife, you are working through struggles with other couples, when you're hearing the challenges they go through, and then they're building you up as a family and as a father, right? Like, they see us with our kids. We see them with their kids, and we're really learning together. I mean, because there's, I know we've all heard this a million times. There's no map, there's no instruction manual when you bring a child along, and man, just to do that life with another group of people it's amazing. And so if you're concerned about the time commitment, I would recommend just give it a Saturday. Give it a shot.
Yeah, and 2 things I'll say. I use the word accordion model a lot with men's groups, but I feel like men's groups are successful when they enable an accordion model. So some Sundays we will have, in our group, for example, we'll have 8. Other Sundays we'll have 25. And I say, hey guys, don't not come because you haven't been for 2 weeks. If you can come this week, great. Come in 2 weeks. If you have soccer the next 2 weeks or whatever, fine, come back after. But just keep coming. Come when you can. And we set up the studies accordingly so that you can dip in, dip out when life demands make sense. But I think that's important. The second point, it's gone. I don't even know.
All good.
I'll come back to it.
Yes, especially for ours. And so, quick pitch. I know we're all going to hear the pitch here in a little bit, but yeah, men's group, Forge group, kicking off this Saturday with a new study in our group.
Yep.
So, if you can come for 2 or 3, if you can come for, I believe it's an 8 series study on Job. And so if you can come for 8 Saturdays in a row, that's great. But if you can only come every other Saturday, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, we've talked to a lot of other potential leaders as well. So we've got a bunch of groups going currently between Men of Integrity, Forge. I know there are several different men's groups. Whether you're a part of Northfield or a part of another church, wherever you're at, get plugged into a men's group in one way or another. The other thing I just want to talk about really quick that I feel like is a successful equation once you do get plugged into a men's group, and this will kind of happen organically. I tell guys who are maybe, and there are certain guys who it's like, man, I really want to get them plugged in because I see what's going on in their life, and I know if we can just get them around a healthy group of guys, and having walked through that as an unhealthy guy and having walked through this in my life, like, I know that if you can get a guy there long enough, you can get with, through God working through the other men and just being with them, you can help them become healthy, right? And surround them in good community. And so I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that I think are really key to as you walk into a men's group. So I posted a couple of weeks ago, but anytime that you combine humility, so a humble heart, man, I'm open to actually realizing, like, I don't have it all together. Like we say at Celebrate Recovery, everybody's got hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Man, I lost both parents. Basically, I had no father, and my mom was gone by early 20s. Like, I've got a lot of hurts, habits, and hang-ups. So to think that I'm going to be a healthy father and a good husband by default is just unrealistic. Like, I need some help, right?
Yeah, and going back to, we kind of blew through this point, and then you just touched on it just again there. There is a piece of vulnerability that's part of these groups. No, you don't have to show up and immediately be vulnerable with a bunch of guys you don't know, but nobody's perfect, and that's where God has called us to be. That's where God has called us to each grow as an individual. There's the passage out of Corinthians where Paul's talking about the thorn in my side, and Paul begs God to remove that thorn from his side, but God's response is, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.
Yeah.
Right? And so weakness is where we grow. It's where we bond. It's where we build. And I know it's not easy to jump in, right? I mean, I think you and I both, it's obvious we don't mind talking, but I understand that that's not everybody. But don't be afraid of those weaknesses. Don't let the devil, as you talked about, be humble. Don't let the devil use those against you, because I'm pretty sure there's probably not a person in this room that doesn't have something that they're not excited about coming out, or hasn't done something that they're like, oh, man, I wish I hadn't done that.
Well, and I think we did an episode a while back called Breaking the Mold, and I think that is key. That's kind of, all these young kids now, I just turned, or almost about to turn 40, so all these young kids that use the word unlock. But what unlocks healing, I feel like, is when you are able to say, okay, I'm being humble, I'm willing to be vulnerable after a little bit and getting to know and feeling safe with the guys around me. What unlocks all of the things that the world has put on us over the years is to combine those and invite God in and invite community in, and you can literally almost start to see the scales falling off of guys once they start talking about it. And that's, we're all raised like, oh, guys don't cry, guys are tough, guys don't talk about their feelings or their emotions, and that's all frankly just a bunch of junk. Like, I see a whole lot of grown boys who never talk about their emotions, and they would become the men and the leaders that God called them to be if they were willing to do that. And it's the hard work, but it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not just for the people that have these huge stories about abuse or challenges growing up, right? Like, there's a group of guys, me included, talk about my upbringing, right? Like, I had a great father and I had a great mother, but there were still some things, I've talked about my dad dealing with anger and kind of the way he managed that in the household, and how, I learned anger from that. It doesn't matter how good your father was raising you, and he's still a human. He's still not the father, and really, God is the only one that can represent true fatherhood. But God puts us together with other men so we can work through those weaknesses. We can pull back those scales, as you talked about, that were laid on us in our upbringing, and really help, I don't know, necessarily change our minds or change our thoughts, but just be open in our thoughts. And so we can really see clearly, see what God's calling you to do versus what the devil is tempting you with, to see what you're beating yourself up with.
Yeah, and I want to wrap up with this thought. So I know for a long time, I've heard this over and over, but most men will only see God as holy as their own father. Right? So if you had a really unhealthy father, a really unhealthy relationship with your father, in a lot of ways, and I'm speaking from this, I grew up in a very abusive household, as we've talked about openly on the podcast, like, man, it's really hard for me to trust God and to know God's true character. So it's really hard for you to just say, well, just pray through it and get to know God and spend time, like, I had to spend a lot of time counseling with other men who know God's true character before my perceptions of what a father looked like, before I actually could start to realize what God looks like as my father. Does that make sense? And that's the only way that I got there, and that I am there today with where I'm at, and I finally trust God and know, like, man, he loves me, never forsakes me. He is here in every moment. And he is the only father I've encountered that is like that.
Man, and when you get around a group of guys that have that same belief, it's not telling you to push through it or figure it out, or I'm sure a lot of us have close friends, but still within that, you kind of are still the tough guy with your friend. When you can get around a group of guys that are just vulnerable, peel back the layers, worshiping God, admitting their faults, and wanting to grow, man, just pure growth happens and is unstoppable.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I love it, man. Well, dude, quick call to action, and then I'll pray us out. I know we're getting closer to our time, so guys, like I said, if you're a part of Northfield, we've got a lot of tables outside with cards on them. Get involved in a men's group. Come check it out. Come try it. Come see one of us. We co-lead one on Saturday, but there are a lot of other group leaders here. Please get involved. Invite some other men as well.
Yeah, ours will be Saturday at 7 in the student building this coming Saturday. So
yeah, man, just show up.
Come join us. Plenty of chairs that go unused every Saturday, so we got room for all of you.
Yep. Otherwise, guys, we are Kingdom Dads Podcast. We drop a new episode every Sunday night. We record usually on Fridays, and then we drop it before the drive-in on Monday. We're on Facebook, all the social platforms, and everywhere you get your podcasts. So
yeah, follow us. Comment in the comment section. We've said this multiple times, but we don't want it just to be us talking, right? Like, we're trying to set up almost a men's group on the go, right? We want to share from the mic, but we want you guys sharing from your lives and from your hearts and whatever you're challenged with. You know, we would love to interact and do some content on that as well.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome. You want to pray us out?
Yeah. God, I can't help but think that you've just got to be delighted to see, you know, a room full of men who are here just to spend the evening just being sharpened by one another and just to be in fellowship. God, I know you call us as men to lead and to lead well and lead our families and just parent our kids well. And so we just invite you in tonight in this night of fellowship. Just pray for the remainder of our time together. We're just grateful for all you're doing here at Northfield and just for being just an amazing father, God. We love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Men, thanks for tuning in again today with another episode of Kingdom Dads. Be sure to catch us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, or any of the popular podcast platforms.
Yeah, please like, subscribe, and comment. We want to hear from you guys. You know, we want to go on this journey together. Share with your friends and get other guys you know involved.